President is being received by his South African counterpart, of course, Cyril Ramaphosa there. President Xi and his wife, Peng Liyuan, arrived in the country on Monday. If you're just joining us here on CGTN, that was a live welcome ceremony for visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping in Pretoria, South Africa. Apparently, we have some technical problems over there. Michael, back to you.
Okay, thanks for that, Zhongshi. We're going to get back to that welcoming ceremony as soon as we can. But first, let's try and bring back our Wu Guoxiu, who is in Johannesburg, talking about the upcoming BRICS summit for us. And Guoxiu, before we just stopped, you were talking about what we can expect in the next 3 days for the BRICS summit, as well as the outcome. Let's continue that conversation.
Yes, as I've just mentioned, President Xi, who has just begun his state visit to this country, will address the business forum that's going to happen tomorrow ahead of the BRICS summit. And that is an important event ahead of the BRICS summit. Business cooperations will be a highlight of the summit as BRICS members are seeking collaborations during the Industrial Revolution. The Chinese ambassador to South Africa told CGTN that business cooperations between China and South Africa could be a good example for the bloc members while cooperating with the African continent.
The relationship between China and South Africa sets a good example for China-South cooperation and South-South cooperation. China has been South Africa's largest trade partner for 9 years. South Africa has been China's largest trade partner in Africa for 8 years. China is South Africa's major source of investment and tourists. According to our incomplete statistics, there are over 10,000 Chinese companies in South Africa.
Well, the BRICS countries are expected to build a partnership on industrial revolution. Of course, it would also touch upon some topics related to security, which they believe without a safe society, their ambitious development plans are hard to come true. Back to you, Michael.
All right, many thanks for that report, Guoxiu, and certainly looking forward to more updates from you in the next 3 days for the 10th BRICS Summit. Well, the CEO of the Standard Bank of South Africa says that the BRICS Summit will provide an opportunity for his country to improve its manufacturing capability. The executive also says that the strengthening of China-South Africa ties will boost the competitiveness of the entire African continent.
The importance of the relationship between China and South Africa goes to the heart of the competitiveness of the African continent. As China moves up the manufacturing and production capacity, that will release capability that could be easily invested on the African continent. We as Africans want to take advantage of that manufacturing capacity and therefore would like to encourage the Chinese to improve the partnerships with Africans so that we can introduce manufacturing capacity in Africa. And so we would support all of those efforts from China. So to the extent that Africa imports Chinese goods and Africans need to make payments, it is cheaper for Africans to pay in renminbi when acquiring Chinese goods. And therefore, as the percentage of payments happen in renminbi, it will be to the benefit of African payers. Now, as I said to you, this is not an issue of competition between the renminbi and the dollar. It's just the reflection of a multipolar world.
Meanwhile, cooperation between Africa and China continues to soar. A good example of the deepening ties between the two regions is the partnership between South Africa's Standard Bank as well as the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. The two banking heavyweights are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of their own strategic partnership.
Back in 2007, ICBC, China's largest bank, bought a 20% stake in Standard Bank. The move increased China's footprint across Africa through funding infrastructure development and helped Standard Bank grow and further expand its reach to become Africa's largest lender, with assets now worth over $165 billion. 106 major projects were put in place across the African continent since this partnership began 10 years ago. More directly, Standard Bank and ICBC is making over $8 billion in financing available for 35 projects across the continent.
The liquefied gas project in Mozambique, it's a game changer for the nation of Mozambique, and indeed a game changer for sub-Saharan Africa. Another transaction that is also public and that we're also proud of is us funding Kafue, a power project in Zambia. It's a unique partnership. And my point about strategy, there are not many institutions that could pull off an arrangement such as that. $8 billion, ICBC looking after the offshore element of the funding, Standard Bank looking after the working capital. Unique, something that we're very proud of.
Much has been achieved, but both parties are looking to strengthen the relationship. South Africa, like the rest of the continent, wants to bulk up its manufacturing capacity to create more value chains. With Africa's growing middle class and the millions of young people entering the workplace every year, China believes Africa presents potential.
African market is huge in potential. The African continent has about 30 million square kilometers, and also it boasts a population of 1.2 billion. And it is also a rapidly developing emerging market. And at the same time, the economic and trade bilateral flows between Africa and China is being further and further promoted. The economic and political neutral trust between Africa and China is also doing well.
We know that the Chinese are going to go where their export growth is fast, where the demand is for the goods. It makes sense for them to logically move. And so that's really the key to creating sustainable ties.
Standard Bank, in the meantime, wants to increase more general and intra-Africa trade and is hoping the infrastructure development projects will start yielding some results in this regard. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And staying with Africa-China cooperation, where China UnionPay and Standard Bank of South Africa signed a strategic cooperation memorandum in Johannesburg on Monday. Analysts say that the cooperation will promote smoother payments between China and Africa. UnionPay will advance the use of QR codes in cross-border B2B payment vehicles in Africa to meet the demands of local consumers. The Standard Bank Group CEO said the bank and UnionPay would continue to promote economic and trade ties between China and Africa through various payment channels. Well, in 2012, under the China-Africa Cooperation Forum, China promised to extend concessional loans to African countries to support their infrastructure as well as manufacturing development. Now, 6 years later, our reporter Tang Bo takes a look at how Chinese financial institutions have helped boost South Africa's economy.
A routine meeting between a Chinese loan lender and a local recipient. On one side is Li Tianshu and her team from China Construction Bank. On the other, Aberdare, a cable manufacturer in South Africa. Li and her team are here to check the company's financial performance after the loan was given last year.
The post-loan management aims to avoid bad loans caused by inappropriate use of the money, asset sales, equity changes, and so on. It's an important part of our financial services package.
Funding is always important, especially for companies like Aberdare. It has salaries to pay and raw materials to buy. Its cable-making outfit was purchased by a Chinese company in 2015. It is now South Africa's biggest cable manufacturer with over 1,500 employees. Its production relies primarily on aluminum and copper, but prices are always fluctuating on the international market, so large sums of money are needed to ensure a steady material supply.
This facility for Aberdare Cable is just one example of Chinese financial institutions helping Chinese enterprises expand their overseas businesses. Elsewhere, other financial services from China have touched upon South Africa's key State Department.
Eskom, South Africa's top electricity generator, was on the brink of bankruptcy last year. But it was saved thanks to funding from some foreign financial institutions, including Bank of China.
This specific one was for the installation of our transmission lines. You'll remember that we currently are connecting renewable energy projects into our network, so that money will go towards installation of transmission networks.
Gavin Bauer, a business development manager from Bank of China, is in charge of post-loan management. He's witnessed changes in Eskom since they received the new funding.
I think before the loan was given, Eskom was doing business in the infrastructure spend. Post the loan, we've seen changes in their internal governance and management, and we've seen that they've actually accelerated their build program, especially with some of the power stations that have come online.
Aberdare and Eskom are two success stories of African manufacturing and infrastructure development being helped by Chinese companies.
We've funded more than $10 billion for Southern African countries over the past 18 years, and will further offer over $750 million for South Africa's industrialization process.
We are currently helping South Africa attract foreign businesses and investments to their economic zone.
Many international rating agencies downgraded South Africa's credit rating last year. That has led to an increase of investment costs. But due to China's high credit rankings, its financial institutions are able to raise money. Both banks believe they will continue to play a bigger role with the deepening of China-Africa cooperation. Tambo, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, now let's bring in Professor Zhao Zhongxu, Vice President of the University of International Business and Economics, to talk more about the 10th BRICS Summit. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. So I want to begin by asking you, it's a very interesting theme this year, right? For the 10th BRICS Summit, there's a very strong focus on the fourth industrial revolution. And that's interesting because the first BRICS Summit sort of took place during the depths of the financial crisis. So what kind of signal do you think that sends with such a strong focus on science and tech this year?
Well, the BRICS, the past 10 years is we witnessed the expansion of from the economic cooperation into other pillars, including the social development and inclusive and innovation driven development. So now this time, we are focused on the innovation is so address the future, meets the challenge in the future, and well, these 5 members they will be cooperate and to explore their potentials to address the potential in the future. So I think this consolidate the platform, and especially from last year the Xiamen Summit and the 3 wheels: the economic cooperation, the peace and the security, and promote the people-to-people exchange. So then it's the empower the small and medium-sized enterprise, and also the empower of the women to involvement. So that's the to find the Broadway for the golden BRICS.
Right. What about financial cooperation in particular? Because since the first BRICS summit, we now have a new development bank, which is the BRICS Multilateral Policy Bank. There's also now a liquidity backstop in the contingent reserve arrangement. So I guess for the next 10 years, right, the next few years, let's not go 10 years, the next few years, what should BRICS nations focus on in terms of institutionalizing financial mechanisms? Perhaps maybe a payment system, an alternative payment system to SWIFT, perhaps.
Yeah, actually, the existing of the new development bank and also this the reserve arrangement is actually is the infrastructure for the financial cooperation, and in the future they will deepening this and including for the payments, for example. Well, the CIPS initiated by China, that's in the future that will be well expand, and all the members benefit from this. Not just only the 5 members, but we have the BRICS Plus model, so that will benefit lots, and so more fair, more open the system to strengthen the cooperation, and also this will reduce the risks for the financial systems.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have to leave it there. Professor Zhao, stay with us. We've got more questions for you in just a moment. Well, ahead of the BRICS summit, we're also highlighting the stories of young rising stars from BRICS nations who are using the digital revolution to embrace new opportunities. Moscow entrepreneur Anna Nestorova started her first investment company when she was just 22 years old. But 10 years later, she decided to move in a different direction, setting up a digital platform that connects buyers and sellers from all around the world.
I'm Anna, and I am a chairwoman of the Global Rust Trade. Global Rust Trade is a digital platform for buyers and for suppliers to sell their goods and their services abroad. Approximately 2,000 companies are already registered. They are from 55 countries all over the world, and they present approximately 10,000 goods. I was 32 years old. I look around and I understood that, this is a fourth industry revolution is coming, so we do everything on internet. Our company, they don't understand how to use e-platform, so for us we have to do a lot of training to explain our companies, our businesses, small and also medium. So if you don't have your own website, nobody knows about you. So you sell your goods only in the next region in Russia or maybe in Belarus, in Kazakhstan, but you have the BRICS countries who are interested in our goods and services also. Approximately 30%, it is companies from BRICS countries, can you imagine? 30%. I can say I want to be the #1 platform, the biggest digital, but it is not serious. For me, serious is to do this life for our clients is easier, better, and maybe a little bit happy.
And it's time for a short break. When we come back, Shanghai shares get a jolt from news that policymakers would pursue a more vigorous fiscal policy, sending Chinese blue chips to a one-month high. Welcome back. Let's get a check now how the markets in Shanghai and Hong Kong closed out Tuesday. Guanshin is here with the details on that. Guanshin.
Thanks, Mike. Well, Chinese markets led regional stocks on Tuesday on fresh easing signs from the State Council meeting. And on the mainland, the benchmark Shanghai Composite rose about 1.6% to stand above the key 2,900 line, marking a third straight winning session. And construction-related shares outperformed after China's State Council on Monday said it would engage in more vigorous fiscal policy as the economy cools. And heavy-weighted financials also led the rally. And now turning to the vaccine scandal in China, shares in scandal-plagued Chinese vaccine maker Changshen Biotechnology plunged their daily limit of 10% for a 7th straight day in early Tuesday trade. And the tumble came after police launched an investigation of the company over alleged vaccine manufacturing improprieties and President Xi Jinping's call for a thorough examination of the case. And Chinese regulators have accused Changshen of fabricating production and inspection records related to a rabies vaccine routinely given to infants. And the vaccine maker also alleged sold about 250,000 substandard DPT vaccines. And a mandatory DPT vaccine inoculates children against diphtheria, whooping cough, and tetanus. Meanwhile, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection said Tuesday that it has begun an investigation into possible corruption at the company. The scandal dragged down healthcare stocks across the board on Monday and has wiped around $1.8 billion from Changshen's Shenzhen listed shares, or about half of their value in the past 7 trading days.